right, Albert, you're down at the Super Bowl all week, and you get to hobnob and talk to all the best because you're as wired as anybody. What do you think happens with Justin Fields?
I think he gets traded. I think I've been pretty consistent with that. Like and I'm not going to waver. I just think in the end, if you're going to draft Caleb Williams first overall, and I think that's still a likelihood that, you want to clear the decks for him, right? And you want to, create, a situation where he knows he's the guy and you're sinking everything into him. And I really think maybe the one you guys want to look at is what Houston did with C.J. Stroud. Now they did have Davis Mills, but Davis Mills wasn't a first-round pick, right? So nobody was under the illusion that Davis Mills was going to be, the future there in Houston when they drafted Stroud. And then, they also had Case Keenum in the room. And this is sort of an interesting detail just because I think it illustrates how teams can do this the right way. In August, obviously there were quarterback injuries across the NFL, and the Texans got offers for Case Keenum, and they said no. And the reason they said no is they thought Case was so good for C.J. Stroud. It was so good to have Case in the room for C.J. Stroud that it wasn't worth a fifth or a sixth or a seventh round pick for them to take that out of the room. And I tell that story because I do think the Texans prioritize creating the right environment in every single way for C.J. Stroud. And I think if the Bears draft Caleb Williams, it would be on that to do that for him. And so, Justin's a great guy, and I don't think that, anything would get overly toxic, but I think there'd be a natural awkwardness to having a guy who you drafted 10th overall 3 years ago sitting in the room with Caleb Williams. So I think you would look to remove that.
So Albert, what was the infrastructure for the Texans to strike while the iron was hot last year to get to the playoffs that the Bears could learn from?
I mean, I think first and foremost, it's having a coaching staff that's on the same page, right? Like having a coaching staff where everybody is sort of in lockstep. And, D'Amico Ryan's going in and bringing in Bobby Slowick, who was going to run an offense that D'Amico was familiar with from San Francisco. And then, Draw Johnson, and I think this is sort of a stroke of luck, but their quarterbacks coach actually had background with C.J. Stroud going back to high school, believe it or not. So, and then, if you want to look and you go further back, I think Doug Peterson did a really good job of this with Carson Wentz way back. And, it didn't work out long-term with Carson Wentz, but they had a great first 2 or 3 years with him. And one of the reasons why is that they stacked the coaching staff, right? So they had Frank Reich as the offensive coordinator, John DeFilippo as the quarterbacks coach. They put Chase Daniel in the quarterbacks room. It was sort of like his version of Case Keenum there. So they just created this infrastructure around the quarterback. And, I think one thing that, the Bears already have done going in that direction is getting Shane Waldron in there. And obviously, Matt Eberflus is comfortable with that Shanahan style of offense, having had Luke Getsy there the last 2 years. And so there's going to be carryover in what Shane Waldron's doing. And Shane Waldron obviously has a great track record of late working with quarterbacks and doing what he did with Geno Smith in Seattle. So I think the Bears have already taken steps in that direction. And I do think another good step would be getting a good veteran quarterback in there. To be the guy that can play, if it's not the right thing to push Caleb onto the field right away, and we're talking about him like he's already on the team, he's not. But I'm just going through the hypothetical here. Mm-hmm. And then whenever Caleb does play, can be a great resource and sounding board for him in that quarterback room.
So I had somebody tell me that Luke Getsy really, really liked coaching Tyson Bagent, and the offense just worked better from his perspective. Luke is now working for the Las Vegas Raiders. So as you look at where this team is right now, the fan base and certain members of the media, they can get a lot for Justin Fields. Others in the league are saying to me, he's not as well regarded in the league as maybe he is outside the league. Is that accurate? I think on the high end with Justin, and again, you guys know how much I think of him, right? Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think, you can get there, and you can get to a point where you can look at him and say he could really grow into something more than he already is. I just think the conclusion across the league right now is you have to build it a certain way around him, the same way the Eagles built it around Jalen Hurts. And if you look at Jalen Hurts' history, right, where he really took off as a player was halfway through his second year, when the Eagles basically made the decision, we're putting in the Oklahoma run game. And they put in the Oklahoma, and it sounds like almost counterintuitive that would make him better as a passer. But when they put in the Oklahoma run game and incorporated him into the Oklahoma run game and incorporated play action off the Oklahoma run game, they saw a much more comfortable quarterback, a guy who felt more confident in what he was seeing out there, and it was reflected in his play. And so that's the tough thing is, like, you have to find a team that's willing to do those sorts of things for Justin in accommodating him. He's as you guys know, having talked to him, he's incredibly intelligent. He's a big, strong kid with a big arm, obviously a phenomenal athlete. The problem has been that he just doesn't see it fast enough, right? And the question is always going to be, can you fix that? You know, some people believe you can, some people believe you can't. But that's, been the problem his first 3 years in the league, is does he need to see the guy come open before he throws it instead of throwing with anticipation? Is he getting through his progressions fast enough? That's still the lingering issue. And you can do things to game that up, but you have to play offense a certain way. And are you willing to do that for a guy? That's really the question. So I think for Justin, it's going to be, and for the Bears too, presuming they trade him, it's going to be about finding a fit in that way, a team that's willing to do those things to accommodate him. And maybe, look, it could be, him going to one of these teams that's in the middle of the first round that, is really looking at it right now and says to themselves, we don't think there's going to be a quarterback there in the middle of the first round that we like. We have a needed position, so let's go and do it. That kind of have Atlanta circled as one of those teams, but they might be in that sort of spot.
Albert, with all the amenities and the pomp and circumstance is around the Super Bowl in Vegas, where do you place this Super Bowl amongst others you've covered as far as city, everything else that you need?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Those casinos, as you guys know, they're designed to trap you. And so things that seem like, you pull out your phone and, it looks like something's a short walk away. And then it takes you like 25 minutes to get out of the casino that you're in, and get down the street.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a little tricky. The traffic was awful. I don't know that there's a real way to alleviate that, but it's pretty good. Like, I think they'll go back there. If I had to grade it, I'd say like a B+. It was pretty easy to navigate a lot of it. The stadium's downtown. The teams were far away, but that's just from our media standpoint. It made things a little harder, when you had to go and talk to the players and coaches. But I thought overall it was really good. Overall, I'd say, B+. It's not New Orleans, but I've said this before, nowhere is New Orleans. Every Super Bowl should be in New Orleans, and it is criminal that they haven't been to New Orleans. We're going back next year, but that's going to have been 12 years, which is way too long, and that should never happen again. But I would say Vegas is up there, probably top 5 or 6.
Hey, Cookie, you subscribe to this channel? Make sure you hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You'll get great content all day long, 24/7 from ESPN Chicago.